I am honored to introduce to you today's keynote speaker, Jamala Taylor. Jamala has successfully overcome a challenging past marked by a lengthy incarceration. He was initially sentenced to a 99-year-to-life term and spent 15 years in solitary confinement at Pelican Bay State Prison. His journey took a significant turn when he was granted release on December 30th, 2020. And since that release, he's earned his bachelor's degree in sociology from S.H.U Fullerton and is currently pursuing a master's in public administration with a concentration in nonprofit management and leadership from the University of Southern California Sol Price School of Public Policy. Recently, he launched a coaching, facilitation, and consulting firm called Amandala. I hope I'm saying that right. And he also serves as a senior reentry manager for the Insight Garden program. And we are so thrilled to have you here today, Jamala. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jamal, for coming. I would just love to hear a little bit about you and your background. And I have some additional questions, but can you introduce yourself to everyone and just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're doing right now?
Yes, my name is Jamala Taylor. I was born and raised in Pasadena, California, to a single mother. I have a twin sister and two teenage twin nieces. So I suppose I stepped out of the house quite early, preteen, and got caught up in what I saw, my immediate environment. And that put me on that slippery slope, that path that can only lead one of two places, prison or death. In some respects, I suppose I was fortunate in that I did go to prison and I wasn't killed because I was leading a lifestyle that lent itself to both of those outcomes. You know, I went on to serve the majority of my adult life in prison. The first 25 years were unremarkable. They were exactly what you would expect prison culture to produce. I was there, I had life, I was hopeless, I was going to die. I knew that at 18 years old that I would die in prison. California didn't let folks out. I behaved accordingly. That landed me in solitary where I spent 15 years. I was released as a result of hunger strikes in 2013. 7 years later, well, actually in 2020, I earned my freedom through the Board of Parole hearings. That's the long of it. I can give you the rest as we go.
I would be really curious to hear from you about how prison changed you. You mentioned like the first part was pretty uneventful, but then obviously something changed while you were in prison. I'd love to hear what that experience was for you.
I believe I said unremarkable. It was definitely eventful.
Unremarkable. Thank you.
I think one of the things prison does, or prison culture can do, is change values and beliefs. Going in at 18 years old and knowing in my heart of hearts that I was going to die in prison, whether it be from violence or old age, California simply did not release people. So that was the only outcome possible. I lived most of my adult life hopeless, thoroughly, completely hopeless. So what did I do? As most teenagers, I wanted to be somebody. In that environment, you know, the path to being somebody is gangs and crime and violence. And I dove headlong into those things. And I actually transitioned from street gang to prison gang. Prison gangs are really more organized crime than what you traditionally understand as like street gangs on both sides of the walls. I dove myself into that and I was determined and dedicated and committed. And I rose up the ranks and eventually I came to the notice of CDCR, and they had a policy where if you were found to be a member of 5 particular prison-based organizations, you were immediately removed to solitary confinement. And I was, you know, I wear these glasses because solitary is a cell with no window. So you can go years without, you know, seeing sunlight. You can go years without seeing somebody who looks like you. And I did those things. And it had a dramatic effect on who I was as a person. Prison itself, I think, moved me in a different direction, more toward, you know, the criminal mindset. But solitary really made me professional in my criminal endeavor. More determined, better at what I was doing for, I say, the first 5 or 6 years. Eventually, I started to read and I kind of grew up. Another way of saying, yeah, I did. I absolutely grew up. When you're alone in a concrete box, one of the things you can't escape from is yourself. So I had to kind of become introspective and look within and see, you know, who I was, because I didn't know. I knew the picture that I painted for the world, who people thought I was. You know, in that respect, I grew and I started to read and develop, and I got into politics and, you know, thinking about my history, the history of our country, the history of our people. I think I began to transform. And that mentality was kind of shared by the men around me. And it led to us being able to put together the hunger strikes in 2013. And that might seem like a simple thing, but California prison system is largely based and rooted on race and gang. Whites, Southern Hispanics, Blacks are like the biggest entities. And it's always been war and hatred and violence. And this is who we became as a result of our time there. And I think you know, once we started developing politically, we were able to come together and kind of start to, you know, see the benefits of unity. And those seeds changed everything in terms of what would come a little later on.
Interesting. Was there any one particular person that had some influence on that? Or
Hmm.
was it the community that you found within your incarceration?
There have been numerous people along the way, but I do think it was community. After the hunger strike and we got out, I think it was example, we were released to general population. I was fortunate enough, and I didn't see it as good fortune at the time to, you know, be transferred out of solitary to Lancaster State Prison. There was a yard. I went to that yard, and for the first time in the 25 years I've been in prison to that point, I saw, you know, different people walking around the yard, people who look different and having conversations. These things, you know, that society just does not allow for that. Coming out of solitary confinement, you know, like social skills are a thing that can be learned, but they can also be lost. And if you're alone, for the most part, you will lose them. There was a time that I was very personable and easy in conversation. And when I got out, I just literally lost those skills. I'd be in the back of my cell with the lights cut off because the noise was just regular noise, people talking, keys, that kind of thing. I was overwhelmed by it. I began to come out of my shell. I signed up for the Inside Garden program, the program that I work for now, and I was reintroduced to nature through that program. So imagine spending your lifetime being surrounded with concrete and metal. Maximum security
Right.
prisons don't have trees. They get their instructions for the gun tower. They don't have living soil. Things could be buried and secreted. So you're literally living your life around nothing but concrete and soil. And that's times 10 if you're in solitary confinement. Now, one day you sign up for a program and you get to touch living soil and grow something. And that was like the most significant moment in my transformation, that class, those moments of touching that soil.